Hi and welcome back. Today I'm going to be showing you a demonstration of using a limited palette. Limited palettes are useful for lots of reasons, but mostly, in my opinion, it's good to use less colours because then you have to colour mix on the page and on the palette, and you end up with a really nice colour harmony. With too many colours you can end up with really sort of aggressive colours that fight against each other, and too many colours, so that the picture can be a bit confusing. In this one I'm going to be using a palette of the equivalent of the three primaries, which is the yellow is raw sienna, the red is burnt sienna, the blue is indigo, and I'm using a sort of dark neutral or close to a black with Paynes grey. First of all, I'm going to wet the paper from the top right down to the horizon line, but after I've done that and had a good swig of strong coffee, I'm just going to brush some slightly more angled sweeps of water across the foreground. That will help me to get my foreground, my landscape in. The usual for me is with raw sienna, I nearly always use it, is to try and sort of put a little bit of tone and a bit of glow into the sky, across the middle and the horizon line. Now I'm using indigo with the Paynes grey just to darken it a little bit, and I'm going to try and get a sort of not quite a stormy sky, but a sort of grey sky, because the scene that I want to paint is a coastal scene, not quite a beach scene. You can just see the sea in the distance, but it's the approach to the beach, maybe with the sand dunes and some rocks and things. So I'm looking for some light in the sky, but some darkness to contrast with it and show off the light. Now my indigo mixture was running down too far, so I'm doing what I've showed you in previous tutorials, which is to tilt the board and turn it round until it stops running down and kind of evens out and runs across. Just going to try and even it out a little bit more. Not sure, a bit more paint here, because it's all running down the page, so it's lightened up towards the top, and I'd like it to have it a little bit darker there. Excuse me. And it's running down again, so turn the board around. This way it runs horizontally rather than vertically. Now I've picked up on my Hake brush burnt sienna, raw sienna, some of the indigo and the Paynes grey in various proportions, and I'm dry brushing it across, not exactly where I put the water earlier, but in sort of similar places. I want the dark colours now to get in these kind of rocky sides, rocky sort of dunes in the approach to the beach, if you know what I mean. I'm just picking whatever colours I want now, really, because the four colours that I've chosen are all very harmonious. So now I'm just going to tweak things and straighten things up and add a little bit of colour here, a little bit of colour there, just to kind of get it looking how I want it to look. It's almost there now, but my sky colour is running down the page a bit, so I think I just need to get a clean damp brush and just get that sorted out. Get a clean damp brush. I'm going to be running it across my horizon line. When the brush is clean and damp, it's known as a thirsty brush, because it sort of drinks or soaks up the water, so you don't have the chance of it either dripping down any further, or what would be even worse, causing a run back going back into the sky. I'm just going to straighten up the horizon a little tiny bit. Using the limited colour palette, it's been quite easy to get everything roughly into place with my washes. As you can see, we've pretty much set the scene. I just need to have a little bit of detail. I'm going to go in now with the card and scrape out just some indications of rocks towards the left in the foreground. I want this to be the eye to be led along past the rocks and some grasses just flicked up with the corner of the card. I just want the eye to be led along towards the glow of light, and we will be putting some birds in the sky. Now here's a close-up of where I've just scratched out the rocks and things. I think it looks quite effective. There's our sky, sort of almost a rainstorm in the distance, which is quite nice. Right, just going to get some grasses in now around those rocks. Just think it helps to settle them in a little bit. You can just put as many or as few in as you like. I am going to stick with just having them on the left side though, I think, so that the right side is less of a focal point or a visual draw. Right, next I'm going to try and just make this pop a little bit more. I've got some burnt sienna, quite strong burnt sienna, and I'm just going to touch it in below the rocky area, just to put a little bit of brightness in. It's quite subtle, but what it does is I think it really pulls the rest of the drawing together, that nice bright burnt sienna. You often find red does that. Small touches of red can really make a drawing pop. I will be doing a video on using touches of colour to make a drawing pop, or to really bring out focal points at some point. But I think you can see that happening here. Right, the painting's nearly finished now. I've just mixed up something that's just barely more than water with just a hint of I think it's the indigo and Payne's grey, just to slightly take away from the white in the sea area, but I still want to leave it nice and light there. I'm just using the rigger now to add some grasses and plants just coming out from the rocks with some dark paint. You could put in some of these in red, some in yellow, even in blue really. It would be quite lovely, because this in itself is almost a focal point. It's the lead in point for the composition towards the light in the sky. And now I'm using the rigger. I'm going to quite carefully put in my birds. I'm not somebody who likes just to put in birds in every picture, but I think a coastal scene like this, I think a few gulls will actually just pull the scene together and make all the suggestions of landscape and foreground a little bit clearer and easier to read visually. I'm just using the mixture of Payne's grey and with a bit of the indigo in it, and a little bit of burnt sienna. I'm being quite careful not to make them too obvious or too large or too many of them. I think that's about okay. So here's the finished painting. So using the limited palette of the 4 colours, which I'll list in the description below, we've, I think, managed to create quite an interesting scene that's got quite a lot of variety of colour and tones. Well, I hope you'll try it out and give it a go with your own limited palette. I'm going to make some instruction sheets and post them with some suggestions for some limited palettes, but I'm sure you can probably discover your own at some point, and it's quite an exciting thing to find your own colours that you really enjoy using. Thanks so much for watching, and as always, please, any questions, please feel free to ask them in the comments below, and I'll see if I can answer. Thanks so much then. I'll see you soon then. Bye.